As many of you know, every August I go away on a solo sermon writing retreat to prepare for these high holy days. It is my moment of sanity and introspection before I'm able to show up for you with my full self. I started this tradition when my boys were really little, when smaller humans are more dependent on even the tiniest sliver of your attention. But even though my kids are older and more independent now, I need the time no less in order to create room, not just for writing, but for my spirit and soul to have enough spaciousness to hear what I am meant to say to you each year. I need a lot of quiet and time to feel my connection to God, to myself, to nature, in order to be ready to offer it back. Part of what I love about being at the beach for this retreat is the access I have to the ocean at any time of day. I love bringing my tea to the beach in the early morning when it's chilly and no one's there but me and my sweatshirt and the birds gathered on the sand and the discarded trash that didn't get picked up the night before. I love feeling the fog on my skin and the sun fighting to break through. I love the runners who are up at dawn with me. I love being there midday when the beach is full of families building sandcastles and young folks throwing frisbees, and the little kids in rash guards splashing and delighting in the wonder of the ocean. It's magnificent to see the tapestry of humanity on the beach at 2 o'clock on a Monday in August. And I love the beach when the sun is setting, when almost everyone is gone for the day, and the ocean breeze is crisp and feels so alive in your lungs that you cannot, if you're me, help but dance to the sun as it sets beyond the horizon. I love that I get to really experience the arc of a day when I'm on my retreat, bearing witness to the rising and shining and setting of the sun. It's a good day when I get to cast my eyes on the horizon multiple times a day and give thanks for my breath and the strength of my body, no matter what sorrow or strife I'm carrying in my heart. What does a good day look like for you? This may seem like a simple question, even easy, but it turns out that many people don't know the answer to this question because they don't have the spaciousness in their lives to consider it. We are all so consumed with the manic pace of our lives, the constant demands on our attention, the traffic, the chronic distraction of our cell phones, our taxing jobs, our illnesses, crises in our families, our heartbreak, the fact that democracy is itself at stake in our election this year, even just the simple but incessant needs of our children. It's no wonder we don't have time to sit and reflect on what a good day might look like. But today is the day to consider this question, not just because we've all chosen to carve out this time together for 24 hours, but more importantly, because Yom Kippur is the day on which we are meant to take a hard, honest look at how we live. We wear white, thank you, the color of death. We refrain from life-affirming activities. We allow our souls to be open and vulnerable right next to our neighbors. And we imagine, for this discrete amount of time, that we have reached the end of our days and have the time and perspective to look with clear-eyed vision at ourselves. Our hearts are raw and open, ready to receive. What a privilege. Yom Kippur is not a day of punishment. It's a gift, an invitation to look ourselves right at our hearts and ask important and urgent questions about integrity, honesty, and love. How we spend our days is how we spend our lives, says writer Annie Dillard. Indeed. So what does a good day look like? This is the question that has intrigued and inspired Dr. Atul Gawande, the surgeon, writer, public health official, and author of Being Mortal, Medicine, and What Matters in the End. In this book and in interviews, Gawande describes how standing with reverence before our mortality transformed both his medical practice and his life and taught him how to be truly alive. He tells the story of his daughter's piano teacher, Peggy, who had metastatic cancer and was laid up in the hospital for weeks on end, her body deteriorating, none of her treatments working. Neither she nor Gawande had any imagination that there might be a life worth living for at that point, he says. She was miserable and angry and ultimately went home on hospice. But then, her hospice nurse dared to ask her in her darkest hour, "What does a good day look like, Peggy? Just pick one goal, one good day." And then Gawande continues. They worked on that. And the first was, okay, we're going to get you in a bed on the first floor so you don't have to climb the stairs. We're going to arrange for getting dressed and bathed. And after 2 or 3 days of that, she lifted her sights and she wanted to teach piano again. And the idea that that was possible, it was extraordinary. She called our home, he writes, and said, "Would you be willing to let Hunter have piano lessons with me again?" And so for 4 weeks, his daughter had the most extraordinary piano lessons. And then there was a recital, and at the recital, they played Brahms and Chopin and Beethoven. And then Peggy took each child to the side and gave them a personal gift. For his daughter, it was a book of music, and then told them each, one by one, "You're special." And it reshaped his daughter's life. And that was the legacy Peggy wanted to leave. As a result, Gawande's daughter graduated from high school and entered the Berklee School of Music, all because of Peggy. Gawande understood through this experience that when you're going through something deeply challenging, well, whether illness or death or divorce or, God forbid, war, the question is not, do I fight or do I give up? It's, what am I fighting for? You have reasons you want to be alive. What are those reasons? Because whatever you're living for or fighting for, along the way, you've got to make sure you don't sacrifice it. And in fact, could you even change your life in order to enable your life's purpose to blossom, even if some days you don't even have the will to live? What interests me most about Peggy's story is the fact that what enabled her to have a good day was not taking away her suffering or giving her a new diagnosis. Those options were off the table. She had to work with what she was given in order to imagine a good day for herself, one which was emotionally complex and physically painful, and yet full of meaning. A life-affirming day. She spent the last week of her life not without struggle or sadness about her life ending. Those were givens. But by shifting her perspective and goals, she understood that her life could be good even while she was suffering, even while she was dying. She was grieving and living simultaneously. There's a story in the Talmud set in the days after the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 CE, when the Jewish community was ravaged by trauma after the Romans burnt the great temple to the ground and slaughtered and enslaved the Jews of Jerusalem. In the ruins of this catastrophe, the remaining survivors wondered how they could ever engage in activities that used to bring them joy with the temple now gone. Many became ascetics, refusing to eat meat or drink wine. Watching this extreme response among his people, Rabbi Yehoshua said to them, "My children, for what reason do you not eat meat and do you not drink wine?" They said to him, "How can we eat meat, which used to be sacrificed in the temple, or drink wine, which was poured upon the altar, now that the altar has ceased to exist?" Rabbi Yehoshua said to them, "Ah, I see. Now I understand. Well, according to that logic, we will not eat bread either, since the meal offerings that were offered upon the altar have ceased." They replied, "We can subsist on produce." He said to them, "Oh, no, sorry. We will not eat produce either, since we can no longer bring first fruits for the pilgrimage festivals. And if we're going down this path," he added, "we will not drink water either, since water libations have ceased." At this, the Talmud says, they were silent. Rabbi Yehoshua said to them, "My children, come, and I will tell you. To not mourn at all is impossible, as it was decreed that we must mourn. But to mourn excessively is also impossible. So here's what you have to do. When you paint your house, leave a small patch bare that honors your grief. When you make a meal, set aside a small portion of food that you don't eat. You must live, he was saying, even as you mourn, even as you suffer. This is how you rebuild your life. Yehoshua was teaching us that our emotional landscape is not binary, even in the aftermath of war. We are not happy or sad. We do not mourn or celebrate. We feel it all, often simultaneously, and we must always lean into the light in order to survive these messy human lives we've been given. This story has always been meaningful to me because it speaks so directly to the complexity of the human experience. For us Jews this year, Rabbi Yehoshua's lesson to the Jewish community of Jerusalem post-destruction is particularly painful and resonant. But it applies to any day in which we struggle to balance heartbreak, exhaustion, or pain with optimism or joy. That is to say, every day of our lives. A good day is not one in which we walk blindly through the world unaware of suffering or sorrow. If that is our bar, then we will never have good days. A good day is one in which we invite the joy to walk first, guiding us like the sun calling to the flowers, to turn our attention to the sources of light in our lives and linger there as if our lives depend on it. Those moments when we feel piercingly alive can be so fleeting, but if we notice them when they're happening, if they catch our attention, they can turn an otherwise mundane or even bad day into a good one. It's amazing to me how quickly my day can turn towards the good, even just by a fraction, by the smallest act of intention upon my part, or the smallest offering of grace or decency from someone else. The grace of God means something like this, writes theologian Frederick Buechner. Here's your life. You might never have been, but you are, because the party wouldn't have been complete without you. Being at all, living is a miracle. And note to self, attention must be paid. My childhood best friend suffers from a rare genetic disorder that is invisible to the naked eye, but has nonetheless rendered her completely disabled in her 40s with 3 children at home. This woman is that friend who knows you better than anyone because you went through adolescence together. From the awkwardness of middle school to the faux maturity of high school and all of those terrible mistakes you made together, to college and weddings and having babies in sync with each other, numbers 1, 2, and 3. She knows my parents and my siblings. Sometimes I think she knows me better than I know myself. She's that friend who will pull out a memory from decades ago because she also has the best memory of anyone ever to help you feel supported in big life decisions you're making as an adult. She's exceptionally smart and wise. She'll give it to you straight when you need to hear it. She's that friend. From the outside, you would never know that she's in pain nearly every waking moment of her life. She's beautiful and married to a wonderful person. She lives in a house that she and her husband designed and built themselves and has 3 gorgeous, talented kids. She does not struggle financially. From the outside, you might even envy her. But coming from the person on the other side of this precious friendship, I know that inside that well-designed house is a woman who struggles with wanting to be alive because her body has let her down so completely. If you cannot go on vacation with your family, or cook for them, which you love to do, or eat without pain, or even just take a walk around your neighborhood, do you even bother imagining a good day? I sent her my Rosh Hashanah sermon before the holiday began, in which I described the ritual of the pilgrims around the temple court, blessing those who are suffering and walking on the left. And she responded with this question: what do you do if you become someone who can only go around on the left? Oh, my beloved friend, what does a good day look like if you are a permanent resident of Susan Sontag's Kingdom of the Sick? I hesitate to even consider these questions from my comfortable seat today in the kingdom of the well. But loving someone who may never sit beside me here again calls me to wonder how to answer her question. Is it possible to cultivate moments of eternity even when you know that the life you long for is gone forever? I believe the answer is yes, that our ability to continue to love and live in this world depends on small joys being our sustenance. I have to believe it's true. Just as small acts of generosity sustain our community, so too small moments of wonder and love may just save us all in the end. Joy is the gift of love, writes author Valerie Kaur. Grief is the price of love. Rage is what we harness to protect that which we love. And when we feel like we've reached our limit, I believe wonder is what returns us to the labor of love. Writer Suleika Jawad is no stranger to this kind of wonder. She's been one of my guides over the past year of agony for our people about how to transform excruciating days into art and love and beauty. Suleika was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia when she was just 22 years old, a recent Princeton graduate with her dreams set on being a war correspondent. When her life came to an abrupt and brutal halt, she first discovered her love of writing while in isolation, and then painting when she lost her vision during her first and second bone marrow transplants. While she does not hesitate to talk about the rage and fear that accompanies this kind of diagnosis, she is also not one to stop looking for beauty and love even when alone in a hospital room. Most recently, she shared that her cancer has returned for a third time, and she is once again looking for slivers of joy that can transform her days into good ones. What we end up longing for and leaning on in hard times are the little quotidian comforts and delights, she writes. They lift and carry us from day to day. Noting these joys is a muscle I've been consciously trying to exercise, training the eye to see them and training the mind to hold them. I love observing tiny daily joys because it feels natural and easy, not forced, not pressurized, not all or nothing. And not only has the practice helped ease this difficult passage, she writes, it's helped me to identify what lifts me up, and then I can cultivate more of it. On her blog, she posted pictures of her husband, John Baptiste, on her first day of chemo, wiggling and gyrating behind the nurse's back every time she turned around, and pictures of the menu that her friend prints when he fills her fridge with food, with menu items like very ugly but tasty mushu rolls. None of this erases the reality of her cancer returning or guarantees her any kind of lifespan that she can count on. But every small moment she notices makes her diagnosis just a tiny bit more tolerable. The agony and the ecstasy, all wrapped up in one. Our ancestors were no stranger to this reality. When the Israelites were on their 40-year journey through the desert, a trip that should have taken just days, but instead lasted an entire generation, they carried with them the Ark of the Covenant containing the holy tablets that Moses received from God when he was at the top of Mount Sinai. These tablets were inscribed with the hand of God, so of course they carried those heavy tablets with them throughout their long desert sojourn. They were exhausted and traveling through a barren wilderness with no ability to see the path before them, and still they hauled that ark across the hot sand for decades of their lives. But according to the rabbis of the Talmud, it was not just God's perfect tablets that traveled with them in the ark. Tucked in beside the unblemished stones were the broken set that Moses smashed in his rage when he saw the Israelites rejoicing around the golden calf. But rather than throw them away or leave them to disintegrate in the desert wind, the Israelites kept the broken tablets with them and brought them all the way to Canaan, sitting side by side next to the flawless ones. According to Rabbi Sharon Brous, the lesson to be learned here is that the Holy Ark is the model for the hearts we strive to cultivate, capacious enough to hold the whole and the broken all at once. There is simply no way to disentangle the two. Life is a sacred fusion of sorrow and celebration, and all of it is holy. Today, Yom Kippur, is the day on which we feel this intersection more than any other day of the year. Today, we allow ourselves the distinct privilege of not actually meeting the angel of death, but imagining that we do. We ask ourselves what we believe to be the questions that will matter most at the end of our lives. What is the truth of my life? What captured my attention? How big was my love? How generous was my heart? How did I spend my days? We do not, hopefully, list what we have suffered from, but rather how we responded to that suffering, how we mitigated it in our insistence on seeking out the good. Did we look for light? Were we compassionate with ourselves? Did we strive to maintain balance even on our hardest days? Though we fast and contemplate and pound our hearts today, Yom Kippur is not actually seen as a day of suffering. In fact, our sages declared that Yom Kippur was the most joyful day of the year. Yom Kippur is a day of joy because it's a day of pardon and forgiveness, the Talmud teaches. Is there a more perfect day to consider what makes a good day than one in which we are uncomfortable, tired, hungry, but called by our tradition to find the joy within that very discomfort? We will all be observing Yom Kippur until sundown tonight, which gives us about 7 more hours to ponder these questions before the gates close. If this was your last day on earth, your last day with breath moving through your body, what is one thing you could do to turn it into a good day? Could you do that tomorrow, and the next day, and the next? There is urgency to these final hours. We would all do well to heed the call. The Hasidic master, Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev, explained that it's not just that the gates are open during the 10 days of tshuva, but that an energy, a life force, passes through the open gates during the Yamim Noraim. Rabbi Alan Liu of blessed memory explains that the opening is so wide for most of the 10 days that we don't notice it. But during the Ne'ilah service, as the gates begin to close and the opening becomes narrower and narrower, this attractive energy becomes more and more intense and more noticeable. It's precisely this energy that draws us to the Ne'ilah service so intensely, which inspires us to pray so fervently once there. The prayer we utter at the Ne'ilah service is the most urgent of human prayers, the prayer of the last chance. Our friend Dick Schwartz of blessed memory died last year on Rosh Hashanah. For him, this season really was his last. We in this room have no idea who will live and who will die this year, as our liturgy says. We cannot know. And so we must take seriously the call to live every day as if it is our last, to make it a good day somehow, no matter the state of our bodies or our families or the world. We must look for love within the ruins. For us all, I offer this blessing. Blessed are we who sit among the shards of our lives, some sharp, some sparkling, the remnants of what could have been. Blessed are we, honest seekers on the path of forgiveness, as we soften our hearts to hear the call of our souls. Blessed are we who do not turn away from the terrible, beautiful world we live in. Blessed are we who live with courage and the yearning to fix what is within our reach. Blessed are we who wonder how to be whole when our hearts and bodies are so broken. Blessed are we who look for the small joys to guide us out of the darkness. Blessed are we, community of Israel, approaching the end of this day with our hearts laid bare. Blessed are we, blessed are we, blessed are we. Amen.